24 hours
on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Lagos. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink in West Africa, the Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. Here are the top stories. Experts react to ECOWAS plan standby force. Guinea gives the political parties 6 months to comply with new law amid resistance from opposition political parties. Niger army towards attack on oil site dismantles arms supply network. 3 arrested in Ghana over the lynching of a Liberian as Liberia seeks justice for its national. As the incident sparks outcry on social media. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Jibril Janko.
Many thanks for joining us this afternoon. We begin with a focus on the security situation in the sub-region as details are emerging from the recent meeting of the chiefs of defense staff from ECOWAS member states. The 3-day gathering held in Freetown, Sierra Leone, centered around the structure of the organization's planned standby force. It is the first phase. The West African bloc intends to deploy a 2,000-strong force by the end of the year. The mission of the force will be to combat terrorism and help preserve democracy within the sub-region. ECOWAS says it plans to rely primarily on internal resources to establish the force. However, concerns are rising over the number of troops and how the standby force will be financed amid escalating threat of insecurity in the sub-region. Well, Morgan Asogba is ECOWAS specialist.
It
is clear that ECOWAS member states possess resources within their respective territories that could, in principle, provide some capacity to finance regional operations. However, when it comes to the actual exploitation of these resources, practical realities show that a number of additional conditions are still required to ensure more advanced, efficient, and sustainable use capable of generating substantial funding for such initiatives. In practical terms, this raises legitimate questions about the true effectiveness of the region's self-financing capacity, especially when various economic and structural constraints are taken into account. That said, self-reliance remains the most desirable option. If it proves both realistic and achievable, it would represent a major step forward for the credibility of ECOWAS security efforts and for the well-being of West African populations. It could also strengthen cooperation between the ECOWAS standby force and the forces of the AES.
de l'AES.
Morgan Asogba is a specialist with the ECOWAS. Meanwhile, the Economic Committee of West African States, ECOWAS, has voiced deep concern over the worsening hostilities in the Middle East, particularly tensions between Israel and Iran. It warns of potential threats to global peace, energy markets, and food security, particularly for African other vulnerable regions. The developments comes as Iranian authorities announced the death of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei after the February 28 strikes carried out by the United States and Israel against targets in the Islamic Republic of Iran. Augustine Koli has the details.
In a statement issued in Abuja on February 28, 2026, ECOWAS aligned itself with the African Union Commission's position on the escalating tensions. The regional bloc cautioned that intensified military action could further destabilize the Middle East with far-reaching consequences for international peace and security. It noted that disruptions to global energy supplies trade and food supply chains would have serious implications, especially for African economies. ECOWAS called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint and to comply fully with the United Nations Charter and international law, stressing respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the peaceful settlement of disputes. The protection of civilian lives and critical infrastructure, it emphasized, must remain a priority. The bloc further urged to renew diplomatic engagement with established international and regional frameworks to ease tensions and restore stability, reaffirming West Africa's commitment to multilateralism and peaceful conflict resolution.
Augustine Coley filed that report. Well, still on security matters, the Gambian government has also expressed the concern over rising tensions in the Middle East. In a statement issued in Banjul during the weekend, the authorities called for restraint. They urged all parties involved to resolve their differences through dialogue and diplomacy in line with international law. The government also issued an advisory to Gambian nationals living or traveling to affected areas to take precautions. WDR's Banjul correspondent Sangdonal Mendy reports.
The government of the Gambia says it is closely monitoring developments in the Middle East amid escalating hostilities involving countries including United States, Israel, and Iran. In a press release, the government stressed the need for maximum restraint and underscored the importance of protecting civilian lives and critical infrastructure. Authorities warn that continued instability could have far-reaching consequences for regional and global peace, security, and economic stability. Gambian nationals residing in or traveling to affected areas have been advised to exercise heightened caution. They are being urged to avoid areas of military activity, public demonstration, and large gatherings, and to closely monitor official advisories issued by host authorities. Citizens have also been encouraged to ensure that their travel and identification documents remain valid and readily accessible, and to defer no essential travel to areas experiencing heightened tensions. The government further called on nationals abroad to maintain contact with the nearest Gambian diplomatic mission or seek assistance through friendly diplomatic representations where no Gambian mission exists. Officials say the institution is being monitored in coordination with international partners and updates will be provided as necessary. The government reaffirmed that the safety and welfare of Gambian citizens at home and abroad remains a top priority. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now to the Central Sahel region, particularly in Nigeria, where two military authorities have failed in an attempted attack on an oil site in Difa, southeast of the country. A large cache of weapons was also seized during the operations, and a supply network providing arms to jihadist groups has been dismantled. Nadia Dieter has the rest of the story.
The two military operations were conducted in the Difa region in southeastern Niger on February 26th and 27th. According to the regional governor who was on the ground on Sunday, the intervention by the Nigerian forces led to the seizure of 47,000 rounds of ammunition, 10 military-grade weapons, rockets, and 4 vehicles, all said to belong to rebels of the Popular Movement for Freedom and Justice. The same source added that the operations resulted in the dismantling of a network supplying arms and ammunition to terrorist groups, notably Boko Haram. In addition, 4 people, including 2 foreign nationals, were arrested and a significant amount of money was confiscated. The governor of Difa region welcomed the success of the operations, describing the seizure as the largest recorded in recent months. He noted that while the southeastern region of Niger continues to face terrorist attacks and arms trafficking, the army remains fully mobilized to protect civilians and secure strategic installations. These operations follow the February 10 attack on the Jibila position by elements of the Popular Movement for Freedom and Justice.
Nadi Tete with that report. We turn to electoral matters now. In Benin, the government is stepping up efforts to stabilize the country's northern region amid the ongoing security concerns ahead of the April 12 presidential elections. A delegation from the Ministry of the Interior and Public Security visited the Dakar and Dongo departments to assess the situation and reassured residents of plans to ensure peaceful elections. While authorities describe the socio-political climate in the north as generally stable, their focus is on consolidation and prevention. Officials met with administrative, religious and traditional leaders as well as political actors to strengthen dialogue and reactivate the early warning mechanisms to diffuse potential tensions. Community leaders were also encouraged to combat hate speech and disinformation. Defense and security forces have been ought to maintain professionalism and strict neutrality while sustaining a presence that is both deterrent and reassuring in the lead up to the vote. Elsewhere in Guinea, the Ministry of Territorial Administration and Decentralization is raising alarm over the regularization of political parties. In a statement, the ministry has given political parties 6 months to comply with the new organic law of November 21, 2025 relating to the regulation of political parties. The decision has been strongly criticized by several opposition political parties. Christopher Atichi has more in the following report.
The new law sets out the rules for the creation, organization and oversight of political parties in the Republic of Guinea. According to Article 51, any party that fails to comply with the regulations in force will lose its legal status. Musa Baude and Ibrahim Soro Jallo from the bloc of the constructive opposition are calling on the state to first honor its commitment to political parties.
Political parties survive on contributions from their members. In Guinea, there is not yet a sufficiently strong political foundation, at least compliant with the law. Rather than taking a hardline stance, the state must also fulfill its responsibility to support the existence of viable political parties so that democracy can truly take root.
He was reminding authorities about subsidies owed to legally constituted political parties that have participated in elections. Those subsidies, however, have not been paid.
The Ministry of Territorial Administration and Decentralization is demanding the organization of extraordinary congresses, the revision of internal statutes, a 30% quota for women in leadership bodies, an updated political program, task clearance for the National Executive Bureau, and proof of party officers in all 33 prefectures. Usman Dadi Kamara, president of COPAD, argues that the law was passed by a parliament at the end of its mandate.
The Minister of Territorial Administration must exercise caution regarding these organic laws. This particular law was passed in December by the CNT to exist within 1 or 2 months. If the intention is to dissolve political parties, then a communiqué dissolving all parties should be issued because the current demands are almost equivalent to dissolving them.
The government says it is ready to support political parties, but warns that no exemption will be granted.
Conakry correspondent Alpha Ibrahim Balde's report, voiced by Christopher Aticho. All the way from Guinea, Nigeria's Independent Electoral Commission INEC says preparations for the 2027 general elections are firmly on course. The electoral body expressed confidence that the polls will rank among the best conducted in the country's history. The chairman reveals that the commission has begun early groundwork to ensure the 2027 general elections are credible, transparent and better organized than the previous exercises. Well, Abuja, a correspondent Yechinu Saseto reports.
Speaking at a stakeholders engagement, INEC chairman Joash Amikbiton noted that lessons from past elections are being carefully reviewed, with adjustments already being implemented to strengthen logistics, technology deployment and voter education.
Election now anywhere is about technology. But before you deploy any technology, it is important for you to test that technology very well. So one of the things we are trying to do before the election, we're going to have a mock presidential election.
Amukbiton also emphasized that the Commission is intensifying collaboration with political parties, civil society organizations, and security agencies to address previous operational challenges and reinforce public confidence in the electoral process.
Nobody is happy about the classification of Nigeria as an underdeveloped country. So we want a situation where our process will be able to guarantee the confidence and the legitimacy that people will want to see in their system.
The Commission says sustained cooperation from political actors and adherence to established guidelines will be critical to delivering elections that reflect the will of the people in 2027. The revised election timetable fixes the presidential and National Assembly elections for January 16, 2027 and governorship and state assembly polls for January 30, 2027. For WADR, Yechene Sasitu in Abuja.
You're listening to Newslink in West Africa, Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Experts react to ECOWAS plan stand-by force. Guinea gives political parties 6 months to comply with new law amidst resistance from opposition political parties. Niger army towards attack on oil site, dismantles arms supply networks. 3 arrested in Ghana over the lynching of a Liberian as Liberia seeks justice for its national. As the incident spikes outcry on social media. Still ahead, we have press review, guest interview, and sport news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
The Liberian government is actively collaborating with the Ghanaian authorities following the lynching of a Liberian national, Austin Tengbe, in Accra, Ghana. The incident, which occurred on February 27, 2026 in the Lashibi Sokomono area, has ignited public concern, amplified by social media calls for justice and government intervention, referencing past incidents involving Liberian students abroad. The Ghana Police Service has confirmed that an active investigation is underway, with 3 arrests already made and efforts ongoing to apprehend all individuals involved in the incident. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Packer completes the story.
Preliminary investigation suggests that Austin Tengbe, a resident of the Spintex area, was visiting a fellow Liberian when an altercation ensued, leading to the events now under scrutiny. Emergency responders transported Mr. Tengbe to a nearby community hospital where he was pronounced dead. The incident, which occurred on February 27, 2026, in the Lasiaba Sakomono area, has enacted public concern amplified by social media calls for justice and government intervention. Some citizens are drawing parallels to past incidents involving Liberian students in India and other countries, emphasizing the need for the government to protect its citizens abroad. The Liberian government says it is in close contact with individuals connected to the incident, the Liberian community in Ghana, and the relevant Ghanaian authorities. The Ghana Police Service has confirmed that an active investigation is underway with 3 arrests already made and efforts ongoing to apprehend all individuals involved in the incident. The government has urged the Liberian community in Ghana to remain calm and allowed the ongoing investigations to proceed without interference. It has expressed the confidence in the due process of law and the strong, long-standing relationship between Liberia and Ghana. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's head to Nigeria and join Yechene Sasitu for the press review.
We begin with this day starting on security matters. Nigerians and security experts set out extensive reform agenda for Acting Inspector General of Police Olatunji Disu. Troops foil multiple terrorist attacks on military sports, recover weapons in Borno. 2027 will produce Nigeria's best elections. There will be no technical glitches. Promises made by INEC chairman. Let's now move to the nation. Middle East crisis. IG puts police command on red alert. Alleged plot to poison President Tinubu fake, says presidency. National Assembly accountable to God, says First Lady Oluremi Tinubu. And now to Guardian. Germany to deepen business ties with Nigeria. UNICEF raises alarm over recruitment of 1,120 children by armed groups in Northeast. NAPTIP rescues 184 trafficking victims, secures convictions in Plateau. Tears, shock, as Amnesty International exposes torture, rape, killings at Imo police units. Finally, let's take a look at Punch. Iran-US conflict may raise Nigeria's fuel prices. School owners fear 700,000 Ogun students may miss WASC due to stringent measures by state government. And that's it on Press Review. Back to you in the studio.
Many thanks to Yechenu Sasitu with a Press Review.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The guest interview focuses on the security situation in the sub-region as details are emerging from the recent meeting of the Chief of Defense Staff from ECOWAS member states. The 3-day gathering held in Monrovia in Freetown, Sierra Leone, centered around the structure of the organization's planned standby force. In its first phase, the West African bloc intends to deploy 2,000 strong force by the end of the year. The mission of the force will be to combat terrorism and help preserve democracy within the sub-region. ECOWAS says it plans to rely primarily on internal resources to establish the force. However, concerns are rising over the number of troops and how the standby force will be financed amid the escalating threat of insecurity in the sub-region. Well, our guest is Sam Sion, regional security expert. He provides his analysis of the situation.
Well, ECOWAS decision, we say a little too late, but better late than never. And 2,000 strong force. I don't know from how they concluded that the number 2,000 would be a good number to start with. I don't know what's about the funding about this strong force. Fighting extremism, terrorism, banditry in the region have gone on for a very long time. So at this point, ECOWAS initiative, even though too little, too late, but better than never, it's appreciated. But ECOWAS need to come and define it, because if you say you're fighting terrorism, banditry, extremism in the region, putting 2,000 folks together with money, they wouldn't just be the solution to it.
ECOWAS says it plans to rely primarily on internal resources to establish the force. How would you examine the financial capabilities of ECOWAS to funding this 2,000 standby force, given the escalating threats of terrorism in the region?
But recently, ECOWAS distributed, I think, 2.4 million on 3 or 4 countries in the region. Our argument with ECOWAS was, before giving money to any ECOWAS country to fight banditry, extremism, and all of these things, ECOWAS they were requested to do a comprehensive assessment, threat assessment, vulnerability assessment of these countries. And then a comprehensive report is made. Out of this report, we can then go and determine which country deserves more money based on your threat level. ECOWAS did not do that. They decided to give few countries, I think were Togo, Benin, and 2 other countries. So if you are saying that this will be funded by the internal funding, that is the beginning of a failure of this organization. I think ECOWAS intend to solve our problem or minimize the difficulties, reduce extremism, reduce banditry, terrorism, deal with these so-called cross-border criminals. ECOWAS should provide funding. ECOWAS should, because if you are taking the finances from the country, the countries that are poor, some of them don't even have resources. In the fight against terrorism, I tell you this, in the fight against terrorism that I have done throughout my life, our first target is to disrupt the finances of the terrorist network. If you disrupt the finances of the terrorist network, then you have a footnote to begin the fight. So if you are saying the funding will be internal, not raised by ECOWAS, that is the beginning of a failure. I can tell you this. ECOWAS should have the guts. ECOWAS should stand up and provide the funding. ECOWAS should provide. This is huge funding. And depending on country to provide that funding, we may never get there.
Do you think a 2,000 standby force is enough to combat the escalating acts or threats of terrorism in the sub-region?
2,000 is not enough, but it would be a good startup. ECOWAS will have to re-evaluate. ECOWAS will have to do an assessment of the situation across the region and determine which community, which country, which part of the region got the most threatening situation. 2,000 standby force is not enough. Who's going to fund them? You're going to be funded internally now by ECOWAS. That is a late service. ECOWAS need to do better than that. I keep saying this. ECOWAS is a toolless bulldog. They are showing no deterrent. They are showing no efficiency. They are showing no courage to combat crime and terrorism in our region.
Sam Sayong is a regional security expert. Well, in sports, we begin with athletics as Kenya's Brigade Koskegi smashed the Tokyo Marathon course record, winning in 2 hours, 14 minutes, 29 seconds, more than 2 minutes clear of Ethiopia's Batukan Welde. In the men's race, Ethiopia's Tedesi Takele defended his title in a 3-lane sprint finish, clocking 2 hours, 3 minutes, 37 seconds. Well, in football, Ghana international Antoine Semenyo's first half strike earned Manchester City a hard-fought win at Leeds United, keeping them right in the title race against Arsenal. Meanwhile, Arsenal beat the 10-man Chelsea 2-1 at the Emirates on Sunday in the English Premier League, with all the goals coming from corners. The victory restores their 5-point lead at the top of the English Premier League. And that's it for sports news. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Umu Danyogo for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, at WADR News on Facebook, WADR English Service. Coming up next is our health program, Well Body with Imo Edet. I am Sankule Jibril Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.